love.
Thank you for that introduction, Sterling. I feel like I need to bring all of the pizzazz. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Does that count as an automatic?
Yes.
Okay. So I handed out a few sheets of paper to 3 people here that have the words "slow down" on them. Jessica's got one. I think Anouk, you have one. Tom, maybe you did, but you can pass it off since you're there.
I know.
Okay, well anyway, all that is to help me slow down because I speak way too fast. So when you see, like, if you hear me speaking too quickly, please hold the sign up. Don't leave it up the whole time. That will not help me. Just a quick one. Okay, so who here knows what a spirit animal is? Yes, got a couple of. Does anybody want to volunteer what they think it is? I can just tell you. Okay, so basically, a spirit animal is seen as a spirit to guide or protect a person in their journey. It's basically meant to help remind a person of their characteristics or things that they embody themselves. Does anybody know what their spirit animal is?
A horse.
Horse.
Yeah.
A horse.
Yeah, Sterling.
Pig.
A pig. Awesome. So how do you know if you've encountered your spirit animal? Oftentimes it'll be an encounter, an experience that with an animal that is out of the ordinary. Maybe something that's more than just a chance sighting. Oftentimes spirit animals will embody fierceness or strength or something to really remind you of your core self. Mine is a duck. And also maybe an octopus, but that's a story for another time, so we'll leave that later. Excuse me. Okay, so I met my spirit duck, Ralphie, as I like to call her, on a super cold night in November of 2014. I was out, actually the day before was one of those days where it was in the 30s and then it dropped significantly overnight, the temperature, and it was now below 0 and it had been all day, so it was very cold. I was out walking my dogs, and as we came back up to the house, there was something in the front yard that the dog spooked, and it flew smack into the side of our house. Wasn't really quite sure what it was, so as I got closer to investigate, I noticed it tried to kind of fly away, but wasn't really able to move. I tossed the dogs in the house, and I went to get closer to it, and it sort of flew up and over our fence into our backyard. We played hide and seek for a while before I finally caught it, and it had quartered itself in a rose bush at the back of our house. When I got close enough to see what it was, I saw that it was a duck. It looked like a female mallard, but like half the size, very small. I was really confused, so I picked her up. At this point, she wasn't fighting me, she wasn't really trying to get away, and I was able to look at both of her wings, and she was completely covered in ice. Her feathers were totally iced over, which is why she wasn't able to fly. So I was thinking, like, okay, what can I do to get this duck warmed up? I knew that there was a jacket in my garage, so I wrapped her up in this jacket, and I held onto her and like tried to get her to warm up, and eventually wrapped her in a warm towel that I had in the dryer. Now, thank you, I'm not a professional wildlife rehabilitator, so I was trying every resource I could think of. I called the Ellicott Wildlife Center, I called Aurora, who was a bird wildlife rehabber that I had brought chicks to in the past, and no one was answering their phones. I wasn't quite sure what to do because I actually had a wild animal in my house with me and my dogs. So I put her in a milk crate that I found, and a giant book. I put it on top of it and put her in that, in front of the heater so she could warm up some more, and she seemed pretty happy with that. I did eventually hear back from someone from the Ellicott Wildlife Center, and they told me that if I didn't see any signs of injury or illness, that I should go ahead and keep her overnight and then release her the next morning. So I got her comfortable. I put her in a dark room in the basement, and I knew that she was going to be okay when I had actually tried to replace her water, and she got really puffed up and started hissing at me. And at one point, she actually started like biting me, which honestly was really adorable. It was like, oh, you're so cute. So I checked on her the next morning, and she was alert and happy, and so I waited for it to warm up a bit before I drove her over to Memorial Park. When I got there, I took the cover of the book off of the milk crate, and she took off, landed in the water, and I watched her swim away until she joined another group of ducks, and I couldn't tell which one was her anymore. So, all of this sounds maybe silly with the whole duck story, but it really stuck with me. Seeing her like swim away happily after holding her mostly limp body the night before was deeply moving to me. So here's the interesting part of this whole story. When the wildlife rehabber called me back from the Ellicott Wildlife Center, he asked me if we live near a body of water, and we don't at all. Like, we live blocks from the nearest body of water. There's absolutely no reason that a wayward frozen duck should have landed in my front yard. I don't think it was random though, because later that week I had scheduled an intensive with my therapist. An intensive is when you spend a week with your therapist or with somebody and you do a deep dive into your past and your past traumas to really understand them. During that week, I decided to look up the meaning of a duck and a duck encounter. And I found an article that said that a duck encounter generally means a major life change is coming. That week with my therapist was the beginning of my healing, and for sure was the beginning of, was for sure a major life change. So 2 years later, I got a blue-winged teal tattoo on my arm. This is what Ralphie was, a blue-winged teal. And that really helped me to remember my experience with her. I learned so much from that little duck. How to give and receive help when needed, and that gentleness can go a long way in life. Thank you.